What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. Recently, Mediazona ripped off a bandage most people pretended was not even there. It showed how ordinary Russians, people who once sent $10 or less during a live stream, are now being prosecuted for donating to the FBK, Fond борьбы с коррупцией, Anti-Corruption Foundation, founded originally by Alexei Navalny, after it was labeled, obviously, as an extremist organization. Even after his death, the Kremlin is gravely afraid of any reminder of his existence, as you can see. That is how powerful Alexei was. Independent media mostly glanced away from these nationwide arrests. FBK did not exactly shout about it, and yet the case numbers keep growing across regions like a grim spreadsheet sweep. Thousands of unsuspecting donors are inside the blast radius, and many still don't know they need to move away from the potential explosion zone. Whether you donated $1, 1 cent maybe, or $10,000, all these transactions are easily accessible and traceable. So unfortunately, it's just a matter of time when you become too inconvenient, or when the state needs to make an example out of you, when you hear a knock on your door from some guys in the police masks. I want to talk at least about two things in today's episode. First, to separate real danger from background noise, because repression in Russia is not fate, it's a workflow. And second, to speak plainly to people who trusted assurances about safe payment systems and believed brave words on camera translated to the responsible risk off camera. The most common mistake is fearing everything in general and nothing in particular. People shrug. If they want to bust you, they will. They will find a way. That is a myth. Yes, they can pick a famous target and fabricate, but for the public in general, repression is bureaucratic, routinized, and therefore predictable. A law appears, a definition tightens, templates spread, cases multiply, sentences land. Understanding that rhythm, and you can just step aside. And if you ignore it, this is when the conveyor belt grabs you along with the others unfortunate. Russian repression is not a roulette wheel, it's not random. It's very well structured with clearly defined steps for many decades. First they write the rule, then they test it, then they scale it. It is boring on purpose, and that's precisely how and why it works. And here's how you can play around it. Step 1. Check whether your intended action is formally outlawed. Step 2. Read the litigation history and judicial practice for that specific article. If it is not banned and there is no case history, odds are it's pretty safe, for now. No guarantee, however. You can always just become this patient zero. If the thing you want to do is banned, but the law is dormant in practice, you're in the gray zone. Just tread lightly and exercise common sense. But if the thing is outright banned and there is an active automated prosecution pipeline, congratulations, any low-rank cop who can stop you just in the traffic on the street can flip your life like easy as a burger at McDonald's. That is the last categories where you go to prison the fastest. People hate this approach because it demands reading court rulings and understanding legal jargon, instead of just going through a couple retweets and reading some subreddits. But this is how you avoid sacrificing your freedom for the Kremlin's headlines. For years, donating to foreign agents or buying their books had no active prosecution pipeline. Formally messy, practically relatively safe. By contrast, discrediting the army after Bucha events became a conveyor belt. The easiest and the most ambiguous law of modern Russia that can land thousands in jail for God only knows which crimes they committed last week or last year. And that is the point. Bureaucratic repression is a machine. It does not usually retroactively invent crimes. It prints them from templates. The risk lives in what is written and what is already being used. If you treat this shredding machine like fate, it will treat you like a paper. But can we name the exact day in the past when any donation to the FBK became a criminal offense? Well, believe it or not, we can. Let's talk about that particular day in our next chapter. Until 2021, supporting FBK was dramatically risky but not criminally targeted at donors. Well, then came the switch. On August 5th, 2021, FBK was designated an extremist organization. Instantly, Articles 282.3 Financing Extremism and 282.2 Participation in Extremist Organization applied with prison time attached. Think of a trapdoor installed in the floor. The rug looks the same, but just step on the square and that's it, you're gone. From that date, every donation from a Russian-issued card became criminal evidence waiting to be printed and stamped. Domestic donations were shut down. FBK pivoted abroad and assured supporters it was safe to donate via foreign processors. They used the words like safe a lot. Tech people raised the flag, however, and please guys double check me on this one if some of you are much more tech savvy than me. But basically what it meant is that processors transmit merchant IDs, unique identifiers, for the receiving gateway. Early transactions reportedly included the site name and the descriptor, letting banks map that ID to FBK. Even when labels vanished, the ID still persisted, and the trapdoor was now wired to a national database. That is precisely how the spider web was easily untangled and the donators' identities leaked. Case counts tell a much more vivid story though. A few in 2022, more in 23, dozens in 24, and well now 25 already outpacing with the nationwide arrests. Known cases span dozens of regions. Common sense says there are more. This is not a celebrity purge, it's civilians' unmasked identities funneled from banks to investigators to local enforcers. The statute of limitations for extremism is 10 years. Amounts don't matter, frequency doesn't matter. I only donated once, some people say. Well, the law only needs you to do this once. If you donated after August 5th, 2021 from a Russian card, your name can move from spreadsheet to court summons with one simple signature. It does not matter that you hate politics or stayed silent online. Evidence here is binary. The transaction either happened or not, it exists or it doesn't. Closing accounts does not rewrite the ledger. Moscow tends to jail for this. Some regions fine only, but the cookbook is national and the chefs in the capital are very enthusiastic. Unfortunately, after the murder of Navalny, the FBK has never been the same. What was the reaction to their donors being arrested across the entire country? Let's talk about it in our next chapter. Now let's head to the impolite part, FBK's reaction. If it was one-off mistake, well, they will just say, guys, sorry, we messed up, it wasn't safe, here is who at risk, here is help, here is how to leave the country if you need to. Instead, we got safety assurances in 21, which proved to be wrong, public fights with tech people who explained merchant IDs and how the Kremlin can specifically find out your identity, and ultimately, long after courts began prosecuting people, just continued claims that such evidence would not stick. But people landed in jail, nevertheless. Then there was a glossy presentation from late 2024 pitched to Western audiences depicting a vast underground group in Russia, tens of thousands of volunteers on a secure platform, graffiti quests, leaflets, counter-propaganda, cold-calling people and forcing them into enlightenment. Impressive slides that ask for roughly 600,000 euros a month. Meanwhile, the so-called underground often equals a teenager just following a gamified task at night, identified next morning and just pushed into a criminal case. Abroad it looks like very inspiring resistance, but in Russian courtroom it's just Exhibit A, Exhibit B and suspect number one and only. Who is going to jail anyways? Navalny's brand has become currency, unfortunately. Meetings, awards, photos, captions about democracy. Fine if operational responsibility matched the PR. But instead, people who sent $20 during a promo are getting doors kicked in while the FBK team sells photo books and debates ancient history. You can honor Navalny's courage and still demand his successors to stop treating risk as a fundraising footnote. If you can pitch people for a six-figure monthly budget, you can also pitch them for emergency visas. If you can cold call your voters, you can mail donors. You're in danger. Here is why. Here's what to do this week. It's not panic, that's just simply caring about people who risk their lives and freedom for your existence. Here is the actionable plan. Ask 2 questions about any action in Russia, the ones we mentioned in the beginning of the video. To recap, if something is formally banned and if there is an active prosecution practice, then you're walking through a metal detector with a gun and hoping that the guard is sleeping. If the thing is banned, but mostly dormant, don't just violate on purpose. And lastly, if it's not banned entirely and no history, it just may scare your nerves, but definitely not your freedom, not now. Donations to FBK from Russian cards after August 5th, 2021, banned and actively prosecuted. Red flag right away. Which means the advice is simple. If you donated after that date, start planning your exit. Not because you dream of Paris, but because your name is most likely on the FSB spreadsheet waiting to be called out. You don't need to be an activist to trigger motion, you just need to remain within a quota-driven jurisdiction. If you can't leave tomorrow, act like you will. Be as far away from Moscow as possible, as the capital sentence is harder. Retain counsel, gather documents, line up a border plan, tell one only single trusted person exactly what you did and when. Don't post about it, and definitely do not debate strangers about panic or your past activities. For those outside this immediate risk, the rules are boring but life-saving. Avoid formal violations. If you must violate, avoid categories with automated practice. If it's not banned and there is no case history, just stop inventing monsters. If you don't know, read rulings. If someone recruits you for something that looks like a movie and smells like a felony, just decline the role. It's that simple. Follow common sense. Well, there you have it, guys. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. If you wish to support our work, there are links down below, for example, PayPal donations. Those ones are safe. I promise you. Thanks so much for watching. See you on Wednesday.
We won't succumb to their tricks, the facade they try to sell. Their twisted words and feeble claims are resolved they cannot quell. We see through their lies, their feeble attempts to sway. We do not believe in ridiculous Russian propaganda.